It doesn't matter how many Virginia grand juries you go in front of when you're the lawless, rogue, unethical Department of Justice led by Donald Trump. You're not going to get indictments, especially against New York Attorney General Letitia James for the second time in a week. A grand jury in Virginia, this time in Alexandria, Virginia, has rejected the Trump administration's attempts to indict her for mortgage fraud or for any other crime. Warm embrace to the grand jurors in Virginia. It's another vote against Donald Trump. It's not just at election time. It happens in grand jury deliberation rooms as well. When you spend 10 months bashing the rule of law, federal judges, jurors, grand jurors, you lose all credibility. It goes out the door as people flee the Department of Justice. It's going to impact how juries and grand juries perceive of the legitimacy of the Department of Justice. Here's Exhibit A. And they even talk about corrupt. This Department of Justice is forum shopping. They went from Norfolk, Virginia down to Alexandria, Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia, trying to find any grand juror anywhere to indict. You need 14 of them, folks. And she won again. Because grand jurors read, because they have eyes and ears, they're carbon-based, they're sentient human beings, and they know what's going on here. And that she's getting railroaded because she's a political critic of Donald Trump. Welcome to Legal AF on Friday. I'm Michael Popok. Story's so hot, I had to wear my whatever these glasses are. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button while you're here. Let's talk about it. You might be thinking this is a repeat episode. Like, I didn't know Popok did repeat videos. He's not. That was last week in a whole different part of Virginia, but in the Eastern District, a place called Norfolk, Virginia. They tried and failed with a prosecutor not named Lindsay Halligan to obtain the mortgage fraud indictment against Letitia James. Rejected. It's like going up for the dunk in the NBA. Swatted away. And I said at the time, this will not be the last attempt by this Department of Justice. You know, they throw in the towel occasionally, but when they dig in on something, whether it's Abrego Garcia and abusing him or going after Letitia James, they keep going after it, regardless of the result. It's the definition of insanity, everybody. Doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So they send in, I would assume, Robert McBride, the gray-haired prosecutor who had been a successful U.S. attorney and assistant U.S. attorney, a career prosecutor. At least he's not Lindsay Halligan, who's still, by the way, masquerading, impersonating a U.S. attorney. She's still signing papers in the Eastern District. The U.S. attorney, Lindsay Halligan. They kept her about as far away from the grand jury deliberating room as they could. Robert McBride last week goes to Norfolk, Virginia. Same case, mortgage fraud. This little tiny modest house for $118,000 bought 3 or 4 years ago as an investment property, as a second home for Letitia James, and to let her niece live there while she needs some shelter with her kids, and fails, right? That was now if you really count on it, the only way that Letitia James has been indicted in the last 6 weeks is when Lindsay Halligan, who didn't know what she was doing, it was masquerading and impersonating a U.S. attorney. And according to a magistrate judge, regularly violates the Fifth Amendment and the Sixth Amendment privileges of the indicted person in making her presentation to the grand jury. Made a presentation to the grand jury, who lo and behold walked out with an indictment, which was tossed by Judge Curry because Lindsay Halligan was illegally appointed. So since she was impersonating a U.S. attorney, her indictment is not worth the paper it was written on. So says Judge Curry, gone, which is why now the Department of Justice has been scrambling to try to re-indict Letitia James clean. When I mean clean, I mean without Lindsay Halligan's involvement. Enter Robert McBride. They pull him out of Kentucky. But at least he's a career prosecutor, knows what he's doing to go babysit Lindsay Halligan and go handle this prosecution. Because they're trying to get an indictment without Lindsay Halligan's involvement So they can make a decision whether they're going to appeal Judge Curry firing Lindsay Halligan or not. If they get a clean indictment, they're probably going to let Lindsay Halligan twist in the wind. They'll give her another job somewhere, like Alina Habba, special advisor to Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice, whatever. So that's what they're trying to do. That's what we're watching here. This over here. So they went last week, as we reported, to Norfolk, Virginia. They run to Alexandria, Virginia. First of all, the house is in Norfolk, Virginia. In any event. And now they're forum shopping. Let's find some grand juror somewhere who's going to indict Letitia James. The case is crap. It's not an indictable offense. The charge is she bought a $118,000 house with a $105,000 mortgage, and she swore in her mortgage documents that it was her second home and she wouldn't rent it out. There's no proof that she rented it out. None at all. She lets a niece stay there with some kids. She's not collecting rent. Even Lindsay Halligan got that wrong when she got her indictment. She told people like Anna Bauer, the reporter, $17,000 worth of rent. And Anna Bauer had to correct her and say, that's not the rent. That's the delta. That's the difference between the interest rate if she didn't get it as a second home and whether she got it as an investment property. That's over the course of 30 years. She doesn't even know what rent is. So be that as it may, you're allowed to let relatives stay in your second home. I mean, that's the best way to put it. And it's not a crime. It may not be great for your relationship. You may never get those people out again, but it's not a crime. And that's why this should not be prosecuted. Liz Usey, who was the major crimes unit head for the Department of Justice in Virginia, Eastern District, told that in a memo to Lindsay Halligan, don't prosecute this case, there's no case. And she promptly got fired. And there goes the integrity and the ethics in the office right out the door. Along with Eric Siebert, who was the acting interim U.S. attorney, a Republican, when he left or got fired. And others in that office as well. So this is yet another vote that Donald Trump has lost in the last 3 weeks. It's not just the special elections. It's not just the delegates to different state houses. It's not just court races. It's not just governors and mayors. It's grand jurors voting against Donald Trump. Thumbs down. Now, they're not going to stop because they've got time to try it again. And there's no limit on how many times they can try, although it does play into the hand of the argument of the lawyers for Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, is that she's being vindictively prosecuted. Here's Exhibit B, a vindictive prosecution. How many times are you going to go to this well? The well is dry. The well is morally bankrupt. And that's why they're not getting this indictment returned. And I want a special shout out. I don't know if they're Legal AF fans or Midas Touch fans, but they're smart people. And they're authentic people and salt of the earth people in the Eastern District of Virginia. And they're seeing right through this. And they know they're the first firewall in the defense, because if Trump can't get these indictments, then his prosecutions, his vindictive prosecutions, his retribution campaign dies on the spot, right? Dies where it stands there before it even progresses. So it is the first line of defense. Don't wait for the judges to grant motions to dismiss indictments. Don't wait for motions to disqualify. Don't wait for it to get to trial and wait for a jury to find reasonable doubt. Do it at the grand jury level. And that's what we're watching with the second rejection of Letitia James's criminal indictment for anything by a grand jury in Virginia. We're going to follow it all. We're glad you're here on Legal AF. This is where you need to be for the information that you need in order to defend our democracy and our rule of law. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button here. That's not idle chatter. We're trying to get to 1 million subscribers to give us the street cred we need to continue to grow. That's how we can get, in the last couple of days, we can get interviews with the American Civil Liberties Union, with Democracy Forward, with senators like Senator Whitehouse, who I interviewed yesterday with Lisa Graves. And great news I'll end the hot take with. We are moving forward. It'll start, I believe, in the first of the year with regular appearances of the American Civil Liberties Union, its lawyers, on a regular playlist. We have videos up there right now exclusively on Legal AF. You want to know what they're doing with over 100, 150 cases against the Trump administration? You need to know about what the American Civil Liberties Union is doing every day for our democracy, running into that burning building on our behalf. And you will hear exclusively on Legal AF. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Make it a great Friday.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.